after the second shot. So I'm not kind of looking forward to it.
Well, I'll
you
take
may
the
not
bad
get it.
reaction rather than getting COVID. Let me just tell
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I'm gonna cancel class when I get my second shot.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's 7:30. I'm gonna call the order, the regular council meeting of the city of Thursday, April 21st. Amy, will you please call the roll?
I can't shut it off.
Mr. Amrine,
Here.
Mr. De Leon,
Here.
Mr. Ferrara,
Here.
Mr. Kuhar. Oh, hang on one second. I have to admit him. All right, Mr. Kuhar, connecting to audio. Mr. Kuhar,
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Here, thank you.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Here.
Mr. Sidoti,
Here.
Mr. Turner, absent,
Should he be
and
excused?
Ms. Wallach.
Here, should Robin be excused?
I'm gonna do it now. We have not heard from Robin, but I understand he's in a facility in Akron, so we will, I'd ask for a motion to excuse him.
Move to excuse.
Second.
Second by Tracy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferrer, you have opening remarks with the pledge of allegiance.
I do, thanks. Good evening. Let me start tonight by welcoming and congratulating Randall Richmond as Kent State's newest Director of Athletics. The town-gown relationship is an integral part of the Kent and Kent State relationship, and I look forward to renewed and mutually productive re-engagement of these two entities. We all wish Randall and Kent State the best. Also, yesterday, we were waiting nervously to see if justice would be served or if our cities would fall further into the abyss of racial divide. Fortunately, justice was served. I hope we as a nation can look at this verdict as proof that our justice system works and that criminals will be punished. I also hope that society as a whole sees Dennis Chauvin's actions as those of an individual and did not condemn the police forces around the country in general. If anyone present feels that way, I'd ask you to look at our own police force here in the city of Kent and the job that they do and how well they do it. Fortunately, we do not have the accusations thrown at them that some police forces do. For that, we should all be proud. But we should also remain vigilant in our leadership and make sure that we keep the high standards and expectations. We have to make sure we provide them with the resources and training to maintain those high standards we expect, and that they exhibit day in and day out in an extremely dangerous job. Justice has been served, and we should all be proud of that. And we all need to continue to be vigilant and make sure that justice will always, always be served for everyone. With that, if you can able, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Aye.
of the United States of America, to the
to the republic
for
for
which it stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty for all.
and justice
for all.
With that, I would approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting on March 17th and the public hearing of March 17th.
Mike, did you second that?
Yes.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That passes. Public communications, Amy?
Yes, we have 4 members of the public signed in this evening to speak to council. The first,
Okay.
oh,
All right, before you call them to the mic, I have to read this. While the law does not require council to provide time for public comment, we have historically invited the public to make comments, and we appreciate their input. This is the time where residents and others can comment on matters that concern them. However, if we're not engaged in debate, and as president of council, I reserve the right to end any public comments that are disruptive, embarrassing, harassing, or otherwise objectionable. We ask that you give your name and your address, and we will give you 3 minutes to share your concern with us. So who's first, Amy?
Okay, first up is Mr. Doug Fuller.
Hello, my name is Doug Fuller. I live at 1431 River Edge Drive in Kent. I'm here tonight also with Paula Treckle, Dave Summers, and Howard Boyle, which will be making comments regarding the same topic. We're here to talk about the West Side Fire Station, hoping that we may maintain its historic character as it is rather than the changes that are being proposed. In the past, congratulations to City Council. You've been the leader in many preservation projects in the city. I may not have them all, so the old jail that we moved many years ago across the river, to the Wells Sherman House, the Ellen Gross Building, and the old Franklin Hotel, and most recently, the old post office that you sold to John Flynn. In each one of those cases, every attempt that was made, City Council desired to have those buildings maintain their historic image. So we don't understand what changed. Your dedication to preservation in the city doesn't seem to be being adhered to by the Community Development Department. Where the link has broken, I'm not sure. But presently, the Community Development Department has a project out for bid, which puts a pitched roof on the old West Side Fire Station, totally changing the historic character of the building. We hope out of this that you might engage with community development, say, hey, that's not what we do as a city. We don't treat buildings that way. We maintain their historic character. This all, a little more background, this all started a year and a half ago when this project was out to bid, and it came in over bid, so it did not move forward. A series of conversations led the Architectural Review Board to review the project. They voted unanimously that it should maintain its historic character with the roof that was originally designed for it. I've included several emails. I'll just point out a couple that are important. On March 18th, over a year ago, Bridget Susel stated in an email that she would get 2 or 3 prices on the roof and suggested that she might talk with council about it. I don't think she did either one of those. A year later, when I found out the project was out for bid again with no change to the roof design, I asked in an email why that was the case, that there was no change in the roof design. A day later, I got a reply from our city law director, not from Bridget Susel, which I find quite surprising that the city law director had to step in there. In any event, the several reasons that you see listed in the information that I sent to you are largely not consistent with preservations. And I also want you to know, you may hear from people in the administration that this building was not within the city guidelines for architectural review to have a look at. Indeed, it was. In 2009, the city accepted the real design guidelines, and the fire station was in the guideline. For some reason, unbeknownst to anyone that I know, the city changed that line and excluded the fire station and many other buildings from it. So I'm not sure how close I am to my 3 minutes, but I'm almost exhausted.
Pretty close.
The comments that were made, I really hope community development can embrace the history of our buildings and bring this building back and let it be. Thank you.
Okay, Doug, your comments are on file, right?
My outline of them are, yes.
All right.
Along with some documents to substantiate what I just said to you.
All right, thank you for your input. Amy? Amy, who's next?
Sorry, I was muted. Ms. Paula Treckle.
Hello, my name is Paula Treckle. I live at 1244 Woodhill Drive in Kent. I've been a resident of Kent for over 60 years, and I'm a professionally trained historian who recently retired after 35 years as a professor of history at Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. Since my retirement, I've become very involved in the preservation of Kent's neighborhoods and its historic structures. What brings me here today is the future of Kent's West Side Fire Station, because this building is an important structure in our city's history and deserves preservation. And you, as council, have been leaders in your support of preservation in the city of Kent. The West Side Fire Station was designed by famed architect Charles Kistler. It's one of only 2 structures designed by Kistler, still owned by the city of Kent. The other Kistler structure the city owns is what was once the city's only fire station, built in 1922 and now buried beneath decades of horribly designed renovations. The structure now serves as our city hall. Why is it important to preserve this last city-owned Kistler structure? Kistler was born in 1885 in Newton Falls, Ohio, a native son of Portage County. Poverty demanded he leave school before he entered high school. His life is truly a bootstrap tale, the story of a self-made man. Kistler was drawn to the building trades, and as a young man, he worked every job in construction. His knowledge of each phase of the construction process stood him in good stead as he eventually became an architect, learning his craft through apprenticeship. When he applied for his license from the Board of Examiners of Architects from the state of Ohio in 1932, he'd been a practicing architect for nearly 20 years. He was one of the first licensed architects in the state, the first registered architect in the city of Kent, and possibly the only person with a high school diploma ever to receive his license in the state. He moved to Kent in 1915 and began a very successful career as the city's most prolific architect. The list of his designs is long and still growing as we continue to document his work. From modest homes to country estates, from factory buildings to courthouses, from schools to movie theaters, his range as an architect was wide and deep, and the language of styles that he used was rich as well. The Gothic facade of the Kent Theater, the Moroccan influence in the Ferrera Market, the Tudor revival style of the beloved Captain Brady's Cafe, and the tragically destroyed Robin Hood. The original Kent High School, now Davie Elementary, and the elegant L.N. Gross Factory building, which council granted preservation status to. Charles Kistler's fingerprints are in countless major buildings in our historic center, and his blueprints gave them life. The West Side Fire Station, designed by Kistler in '49, is a modest building crafted to fold into the neighborhood that it serves. Designed in the international style, its rational construction includes the use of brick, concrete, steel, cubist forms, and a flat roof is a key design element of this mid-century style. The structure served our city well for nearly 3/4 of a century, and now it requires a new roof. The city only requested bids be submitted for construction of a gabled roof. Why? Why not embrace his original design for the building? Like Kistler's much mourned Robin Hood, the West Side Fire Station stands outside the boundaries of Kent's historic overlay district. These boundaries, for no apparent reason, diverge from those mapped by Chambers, Murphy, and Burge restoration architects, commissioned to create them by the city of Kent. Consequently, this building is vulnerable to random alteration, even destruction, with no consideration of its historic value. Council, you now control the fate of the West Side Fire Station. In the past, you've taken a leadership role in preserving many of our city's beautiful historic structures. We ask you now to preserve architect Kistler's flat roof design for the West Side Fire Station. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Is your concern on file with the clerk also?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Further, Amy?
Mr. Dave Summers.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Dave.
My name is Dave Summers. I live at 1351 Greenwood Avenue, and I am an architect. My office was in downtown Kent for 37 years. And I would also like to comment on the West Side Fire Station. I am the architect of record of the last small addition to that fire station, the one that was done in the 1990s. It's the addition to the north side of the station prior to this current renovation. That addition has a sloped shingled roof, which was done at the request of the then city manager. Had I known then what I know now, that the existing building is a wonderful example of Charles Kistler's work of that area, I would have protested more strenuously the instructions to add a sloped roof to that addition. I believe that you, as the city, should hold yourselves to a higher responsibility than you hold the public. That building should remain with a flat roof to retain the integrity of the original design. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard inhabitants of the city voice their sorrow and despair that the building on the corner of Main and Water Street has since the 1960s been clad in green glass, covering up a wealth of historic details. Maybe many of you have felt the same way. Well, why was that done? It was done because that was what was in vogue at the time, and that was likely the least expensive route. Putting it back today would be very expensive, and unfortunately, a portion of those historic details under that glass have likely been destroyed. The common perception is that all flat roofs leak. If a flat roof is specified correctly, installed correctly, and maintained, it will outlast a sloped shingled roof. You have a good architect on board for this renovation. Ted Manfres is more than capable of specifying a quality flat roof membrane for this project. I respectfully ask that you consider retaining that flat roof on the West Side Fire Station. Thank you for your time.
Dave, is your comments on file with the clerk also?
They are, your mayor.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Further,
you.
Amy?
Mr. Howard Boyle.
Thank you. My name is Howard Boyle. I live at 1485 River Edge Drive in Kent. I primarily I'm not the architectural expert that Dave and Doug are. However, from working downtown for the last 46 years and living here my entire life, I recognize, and having a tremendous interest in history, I recognize the architectural value, historic value of our buildings in our city. They primarily describe the fabric of what we've had in this community since the 1860s. Since we lost the buildings that were built primarily in the 1830s. However, the detail work in some of the buildings is still evident. And it wasn't that long ago that I remember taking the architects for the new city hall around town and showing them the detail work, the window work, the what some of the architectural fabric historically is in the city of Kent. We've been, as you described, how lucky we were to have Charles Kistler in our town and have him move through his career and change as he did that. And we have all of those elements produced by Kistler. And once again, as someone mentioned, the two fire stations, strangely enough, were both designed by Kistler. One was frankly much more ornate and distinctive. And of course, we can't see that because it was all bricked up and destroyed years ago. However, this one, and I will admit, when driving by the Kistler on Manaway Street, I would not look at that as being, boy, isn't that a beautiful building? I mean, that to me is a relatively nondescript building. It was designed to be that way. It has tremendous architectural detail, and it does have a flat roof and a cap and all the things we talk about in the Architectural Review Board. And it would be a shame to lose that just because it's a popular thought that we put a gable roof on a flat roof and that solves all of our problems. You might notice that each and every building, the Sanford building in downtown Kent right now next to the Hometown Bank building, they've just taken the gabled roof off of it that was put on in the 80s, and they're replacing it with a flat roof with a rubber membrane because it was just not effective. Plus the fact pieces of it kept falling off and we found them in the street. So it was, I'm sure that Ted Manfred's design is better than that one, but it is still a flat roof, a gabled roof that was not designed with the building is not necessarily the best option. One of the other issues I would like to bring out is the fact that I don't think that the community development or the fire department had any adverse feeling against this building or design. I think primarily they didn't know, and that partly is the fault of maybe many of us that, in the preservation interest, the Historical Society as an example, we've never really designated what is a historic structure or a potentially historic structure. So as Dave Summers said, if he'd known the building had historic significance, he probably would not have designed it the way he did when he put the addition on in the 90s. So it's not too late to change. This building does have tremendous interest by many people. And we would certainly love to see the building remain as it was designed by Charles Kistler as much as possible within reason. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Are your comments on file with the clerk also?
My comments were just what I gave you. No, I have not sent a.
All right. All right. I thank you all for your concern.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to written communications. Amy, written communication?
A letter from the Arbor Day Foundation congratulating Kent on earning recognition as a 2020 Tree City was received on March 8th, 2021. An email from Mr. Rick Hoxley regarding lawmakers seeking to limit authority over fossil fuel use was received March 17th and forwarded to all council members. A letter from Parta requesting to reappoint or replace a board member whose term is expiring June 30th was received on March 23rd, 2021. The Standing Rock Cemetery Board meeting minutes of March 11th was received on March 24th, 2021. A new liquor license request was received March 24th for the Kent Diner LLC at 1225 West Main Street, and Chief Shear had no objections to this request.
Move to return with no objections.
Second.
Is there a second? Any comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
A transfer liquor license request received April 9th, 2021 from Riley Hotel Group LLC, doing business as Kent State Hotel and Conference Center, to Olympia Hotel Management LLC, doing business as Kent State University and Conference Center, located at 215 South Peister Street, was received on April 9th, 2021, and Chief Shear had no objections to this request.
Move to return with no objections.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
An email from Lisa today, External Affairs of Ohio Edison, regarding a new scholarship program offered to diverse students of the First Energy's Power Systems Institute was received March 26th and forwarded to all council members. The Planning Commission agenda and staff report for April 6th was received on March 26, 2021. Standing Rock Cemetery agenda for April 8th was received on April 1st. A thank you card from Harrison and Changjuan Wicks was received and forwarded to council on April 9th, thanking council for the card that was sent for the birth of their daughter, Charlotte. The Parks and Recreation Board packet for April 15th was received on April 9th. The Health Board agenda and statistical report for the April 13th meeting was received on April 12th. And then communication received after the agenda was published. An email was received from Andrea Blackwood regarding her resignation from the Fair Housing Board due to her move out of state. And that was received on April 16th and forwarded to council. I received the civil, I'm
You
sorry.
need a motion to accept that? Is
Oh, yes.
there a motion to accept the resignation?
Move to accept their authorization. The resignation.
John seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
The Civil Service Commission meeting agenda for April 19th was received on April 16th, 2021. A memorandum of understanding from the Kent Chamber of Commerce regarding the Kent Heritage Fireworks to be held on June 26th was received on April 19th, 2021. An email from Allison Chakosky regarding her resignation from the Civil Service Commission was received April 20th, 2021.
Motion to accept that resignation.
Move to accept.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Okay, emails received from Doug Fuller, Paula Treckle, and Dave Summers regarding public comments on the West Side Fire Station were received and forwarded to council on 4/21/21. And an email from Alan Orashan regarding replacing the West Side Fire Station roof, asking to keep the front facade as is, was received and forwarded to council on 4/21/2021. And
That
that's
it?
all. Yes.
All right, thank you, Amy. Good job. City manager report, Jack.
Yeah, I'd like to move items 1 through 9 on the city manager's report.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. DeLeon. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there further, Mr. Roller?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Moving into standing committees of legislation, under the committee of the whole, I need a motion to accept the minutes from April 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed,
Abstain.
same sign.
Abstain.
One abstention. There's no action recommended. We need to vote on the replacement of the 2 seats on Fair Housing Board. There are 2 names. Amy, you want to give the 2 names?
Once.
Yeah, since our last meeting, we had another member, as I mentioned in my communication, that had resigned. So the 2 names for the Fair Housing Board that had applied for the positions are Kaylee Veraldo Zucchero and Jennifer Nichols.
Can I ask for a point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Roger.
If that's the case, can we, even though we didn't bring it out we didn't have any other discussions in the past, can we just fill those positions with this new person and have both of them filled at the same time?
I think that's what we're going to do.
Perfect.
Move to do that.
I'll second that, John.
You want to include on authorizing that, John?
Yes.
Roger, is that fine with the second?
I thought I heard him say it, Mr. Mayor. So
All right, is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-033 as amended?
Draft number 2020-033, a resolution appointing Kaylee Veraldo Zucchero and Jennifer Nichols to the Fair Housing Board and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, all call the roll for adoption, please.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-33 has passed.
Okay, that's it for committee of whole. Community development, Mr. Kuhar.
I would move the minute approval for the April 7th, 2021, and there is no action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
One abstention. One abstention. That's it for community development, health and safety, Mr. Amrine. Nothing.
Nothing. No.
Land use, Mr. Ferrer.
I would move the approval of the committee minutes of April 7th and the action recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
Opposed and one abstention. All right, that's it for land use, streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have quite a few items. First, I will move the committee meeting minute approval of April 7th, 2021.
Your second?
Second.
Second by John Kuhar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed
Abstain.
and one abstention.
I would further move, Mr. Mayor, the three actions that are listed.
Second.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, that passes. With the clerk read draft number 2021-34 in title only.
Draft number 2021-034, an ordinance amending section 353.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Kent titled Parking Regulation Authorization to prohibit on-street parking on Middlebury Road from the city limits to Akron Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara, Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
and Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Need a motion for adoption.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
and Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-34 has passed.
Okay, thank you. With the clerk read draft number 2021-35 in title only.
Draft number 2021-035, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to close Franklin Avenue from Erie Street to Main Street to assist downtown businesses in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension. Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
and Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-035 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-36 in title only?
Draft number 2021-036, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into an agreement with the city of Kent, Ohio City and Main Street Kent, MSK, for needed maintenance services to keep the outdoor seating area sanitary and orderly and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension. Second.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by John. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-036 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sidoti, that's it for streets and sidewalks?
That is it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
Yeah, I'd like to move the minutes, meeting minutes from approval for April 7th, 2021.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Same.
The one abstention.
I'd like to move all three actions.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-37 in title only?
Draft number 2021-037, an ordinance authorizing the appointment of a nonpartisan committee to review and make recommendations regarding the salaries of the mayor and city council pursuant to Article 5 of the Charter, Section 5.054, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-037 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-38 in title only?
Draft number 2021-038, an ordinance amending ordinance 2011-46 to extend the fire protection and emergency medical service agreement with the Franklin Township, Ohio, in order to continue negotiating a new long-term agreement and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
and Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-038 has passed.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-39 in title only?
Draft number 2021-039, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-129, the current appropriation ordinance passed December 16th, 2020, so as to adjust appropriations, transfers, and advances from the various funds of the city of Kent to individual accounts for the current expenses of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Suspension.
Second.
Move suspension.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
Mm-mm.
Seeing none, please call for adopting the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and Ms. Schaefer Bish.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-039 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-40 title only?
Draft number 2021-040, an ordinance accepting a donation of a container that will be used to collect aluminum cans for the Akron Children's Hospital burn unit and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
I just have one quick question. I just have one quick comment.
Go ahead, Gwen.
The pictures of this is impossibly cute. This container that's going to be behind the fire station. I was so excited to see it. If you haven't looked at it, it's adorable. That's all.
All right, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-040 has passed.
Okay, that's it for, is there any unfinished business we need to discuss? Anybody? Okay, moving on. Any new business need to? Oh, no new business? Council members comment, anything?
Yeah.
Tracy? Tracy?
yeah. I want to advocate for the flat roof on the fire station. I mean, I'm all in supporting as many historically accurate buildings as we have in Kent as possible. It keeps the flavor of the town, keeps the flavor of the downtown. I was wondering if we could revisit it. Now they have techniques where flat roofs are not as leaky as they used to be. And if we have problems with the flat roof, then maybe we can go into negotiations with these people or the Historical Society to help support the maintenance of the flat roof if they want it that much. So I would like to make a motion that maybe we go back and consider the flat roof alternative instead.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Further discussion, Tracy?
Nope, I just think, you know, as they pointed out, look at the hometown, not the hometown bank, what is it, Huntington Bank, how everybody hates what happened to Huntington Bank. I mean, and look at all the wonderful buildings that we lost over here, Opera House and the one that burned down in the corner. I think we should just try to preserve the historical accuracy of as many buildings as we can.
Mr. Pereira?
Yeah, I appreciate that motion, Tracy. I hate lengthening the process. I don't feel like we're second guessing staff, but I think what we're looking at in the four individuals that spoke brought up a good point that we have been good stewards and set a high standard for the city, not only with old buildings, but also with new. And, with our leads design and our willingness to pay extra to set that high standard. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't look to maintain the historical significance. I mean, we're a town that prides itself on our history. And when you do something like this, you're erasing a little bit of your history. So I'm certainly in favor of going back and readdressing this. I hate lengthening the process, but in this case, once it's done and forever ruined. And I'd hate to see that happen. So.
All right, before I go to anyone, Mr. Ruler, is there any, where are we in the logistics of this?
Well, it has been
Point of
bid.
order, there is a motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
This pertains to the motion, Mr. Pereira. Go ahead, Mr. Ruler.
Well, Melanie could probably speak best to it, but it's my understanding that it was bid, as Mr. Fuller indicated, it was bid with a gabled roof. And the bids came in under bid, which we were grateful for. I've had conversations with Chief Tosco, and actually as late as this morning, he said this building is borderline uninhabitable. And I said, well, if it comes up tonight, be sure you say that. So he is on the line. I mean, please know, and I've been on the periphery of these conversations, but this has not been a sneak in the back door. There's been regular, ongoing conversations, meetings with Mr. Fuller, meetings with the ARB. It was not for a lack of understanding of the two respective sides. It's really just a difference of opinion on the historical significance of the property and the fact that half the roof has already been changed for good reason. And as Chief Tosco told me today, the plan was back in the 90s to do all the roofs, but they only had enough money at the time to do the one. And so it was not, there's no, so this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, I guess. But truthfully, Melanie, I know she's had conversations with the folks at ARB, and she's really our resident expert on this. She gave a long litany explanation in terms of what goes into historical significance from an architectural perspective and so forth. Now, if it's simply Mr. Kistler's name, then I guess we just say that. It's certainly the building seems to not have the kind of weight as far as typical historical significance. So anyways.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. We're gonna go back to the motion. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Miss Heidi?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about what we're doing. Are we voting on the flat roof right now, or are we voting to have discussion where we can ask questions and things like that?
It's my understanding Tracy's motion, but Tracy's motion is to have further discussion.
Yeah, revisit it, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
I guess, I would really want to thoroughly discuss this, given, what we've heard from staff. There are questions I have both ways, and, it's not an easy issue. So I guess I don't want to take it too lightly, and I also don't want to set precedents that we might regret. So.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Sorry.
Did I miss you?
No, I just had my hand up. No worries. I'm just in terms of discussion, I'm concerned that postponing this is going to lead to further damage in that building. I greatly appreciate the comments by everybody who came to speak in favor of saving it, but it seems to me that roof line has already been changed. We can't go back and restore it. I don't think that that's what anybody wants us to do with taxpayer dollars. I'm gonna vote no, just because I think we need to proceed on that building. This is a project that's been in the works for some time now, and I don't think that we should risk any further damage to that roof. So I'm just gonna vote no on this.
Okay, is there anybody else that has comment? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Let's do a show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5. All right, opposed, same sign.
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain, Jerry, because I'm president of the Historical Society. So.
All right, 2 with 1 abstention. Okay. Is there any other new business we need to talk about?
Mr. Mayor?
Roger.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I see we have a transfer of liquor license we approved to the old Longicanos. Do we have any other further information on that? Is it just, is it a local group going to reopen it, or, just kind of curious about it?
I don't know, but I'll get that information to you.
Well, no, us West Siders, we kind of,
I hear you. We like eating there.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
I can answer that if you'd like, Mayor, right now.
Go ahead.
So Roger, the company or the owner of it is going to try to lease it full package with basically the liquor license and leasehold improvements all as one.
Oh, okay.
So that they don't have, right, so, because it's easier to lease and more valuable than leasing it and forcing them to deal with getting the liquor license.
Exactly.
So the current owners aren't going to sell it. They're going to package it and lease it out to got it. Oh,
that is correct.
that helps because there's a lot of question about it. And I
Well,
just didn't know.
the word is, there is a viable candidate and it's Mexican.
Okay.
right.
No Italian. Hey, there we go.
Roger, we got to open our own restaurant.
It's not been confirmed yet, but.
I think the chief has something to say about it.
Go ahead, chief.
I was going to say, I've also seen a transfer of the liquor permit come through from the state on that building as well.
Okay. Thanks, chief.
All right, is there any other new business? Tracy?
Yeah, since this is such an urgent matter, I was wondering, can we get the discussion of the roof on the very next committee meeting so we can get that taken care of really quickly?
Yes, I think so. Dave's shaking his head. I agree.
Yeah,
We don't
'cause-
want to hold this up any longer
No.
and ask.
No.
All right, any other new business? Council comments, any? All right, mayor's report. Last Saturday, if you had the opportunity, they did the putt around downtown Kent. There was a lot of people downtown and everybody was using their social distancing and masks, but I think a lot of people had a good time and the weather was good and people wanted to be outside, so it all worked out. Tomorrow is Earth Day. And today is Administrative Professional Day, and I think we need to thank Amy for her job well done for all she does every day, and to thank every other person that fits that status. So thank you, Amy.
Oh, my
Hey.
pleasure. And thank you for the beautiful flowers.
Okay, we're gonna move into executive session. Jack, will you please make the motion?
Yes, I'd like to move an executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, paragraph 121.22, section G, item 1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and section G, item 2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property at competitive bidding, or the sale or other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in accordance with section 505.10 of the revised code. If premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
Okay, Amy, roll call.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Second by Mike. Now roll call.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner, and Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Need a motion to excuse Mr. Turner.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second.
second by Jack. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Who we need